Welcome back to another episode of the Believe Georgia Tech podcast. We are your hosts. That is RJ Schafer. I'm Jackson Caudell, coming to you on Friday, July 19th. It's a Friday morning. We're going to come to you big week in college sports, especially football. We had the release of EA Sports College Football 25 earlier this week. Well, that was early access. I guess today for normal people, it's like, instead of the sickos, like today's the day for you guys. So I guess I shouldn't get too ahead of myself. We're also going to talk ACC Media Days. Those begin on Monday. We've also got some other notes. MLB Draft was this past weekend. We got recruits committing this weekend. But RJ, how are you doing, man?
Feeling great, man. We have been waiting for this week for a very long time. So, Can't be much better than this.
So before we dive into that, let's, a couple things. So the MLB Draft was actually this past week and started on Sunday. Tech did not have a first-round player drafted. They had the first player come off the board when Peyton Green went to the Miami Marlins. And then I think it was a round or two later when Cam Hill went to the Philadelphia Phillies. Of course, like me being a Braves guy and Atlanta guy, like it seems like all the time these Tech players get drafted to teams I just despise. Because a couple of years ago when Kevin Parada, he got drafted, I think number 11 overall, and it was to the Mets. So like we've had a lot of Tech players go to other NL East teams, but then Dawson Brown and Logan McGuire, they also got drafted, I think, the following day. So congrats to those guys. They all were really good this year. So especially like I just highlight Peyton Green. Like towards the end of the season, like he really, like that offense really kind of took off, after a rough start there for a little bit. Tech was winning like I think 5 of their last 6 or 4 of their last 5 ACC series, and he was a big part of that. So definitely congratulations to those guys, and hope to see him in the majors at some point here in the future. But I think it also shows like there's so much young talent still on this baseball team. Like Drew Burress obviously gets a lot of headlines, but this team really still does have a lot of talent. And I'm kind of eager to see how they play next year. So anything on those guys?
Yeah, not much. I just wanted to say it's good to see that Georgia Tech, despite struggles in playoffs or this and whatever, that they still continue to be like a pipeline of the MLB, and they still continue to produce and develop MLB level talent. So, it's just good to see as a fan.
Yep, it's always good. The other little news bite here: 4-star offensive lineman Cortez Smith plays at Parkview High School. One of the top offensive linemen in the country. He commits tomorrow. Now he had a Final Four of Georgia Tech, Georgia, Miami, South Carolina. Won't spend too much time on this because I think everybody kind of knows which way this is headed. He's gotten I think 6 crystal ball predictions on 247 Sportsland with Georgia. There's been a lot of just Georgia smoke here over the past couple of weeks. That's where I think he'll probably end up. Now I'll say this, like recruiting shockers happen fairly frequently. I mean, we had not that this concerns Tech, but we had one this week when everybody thought 5-star corner DJ Pickett was either choosing Oregon or Miami. All the crystal balls had Oregon. He picks LSU. So like the surprises do happen, just to point that out. But it does sound like Kirby Smart and the Bulldogs got this one, unfortunately. But we'll see what happens. Any thoughts on this one?
Not really.
Let's move on. So one of the main topics we wanted to talk about today. So last week we kind of gave a preview of what we thought Georgia Tech would look like in the game because, truthfully, there wasn't a whole lot of Georgia Tech. You had the stadium screenshot. You had you knew the Ramblin' Wreck was going to be in there. You saw pictures of Buzz in there, but you really didn't know like what the team was going to look like. We have both played the game. We've both played with Georgia Tech. So I guess I'll start with you, RJ. Kind of what were your first impressions, and not just of the game, but just what it was like playing with Georgia Tech overall?
Yeah, what I noticed is that especially the offense and Haynes King is really fun to play with. And I think the game kind of tailors to offense because it kind of seems like it's easier to play on offense. But I have noticed Haynes King, and even online play, like he can roll out and drop like a 60-yard pass, which I'm not complaining, but there's a lot of things that this offense can do. I did notice the defense kind of got smoked outside of a few players, but I think that is just because offense is tailored to in this game, and it's a lot easier to score than previous games.
Yeah, that is the number one thing. Because so I get on the game and I had a picture of like the simulation of the season I did. I wrote about it and talked about the ratings and everything. And so I get on there and play, and I'm like, just the first few games, and I'm like, man, is this defense really this bad on here? And I was just like, and I don't even mean that in like a sarcastic way. It was just like, dang, man. So I was like, I'm gonna play with some other teams. So I played with some of the higher up teams. Like I played with. I actually enjoyed playing with Ohio State, to be honest. Like they got a stacked team on this game. I couldn't stop anybody with Ohio State, and just everybody. I have not been able to stop anybody with any team right now. So I think that's kind of the sentiment of a lot of people. Is like you're not playing defense on this game in all likelihood. Now I've not played. I've been playing the computer. I've had to get my legs back under me a little bit because, I haven't even played Madden in like 3 or 4 years, and I used to play it all the time, but I haven't even played that. So it's taken me a little bit to get my gaming legs back under me here. So I've just been playing on varsity. I've been taking it easy. I'm gonna ratchet it up a little bit here soon, though. But the other thing I've noticed, and I want to get your thoughts on this, is having a mobile quarterback is like that's what you want. Like
100%.
With the quarterback is, and that's like what made Haynes King so good because he's really fast on this game. Like just the zone reads, the everything like that, and just being able to escape from the pocket. Like if you have a mobile quarterback, like it's really good. Which is I think why everybody likes to play with Alabama, because I haven't actually got a chance to play with Alabama yet, but like I've heard that playbook and just Jalen Milroe in general are just like kind of crazy for this game. But some of the ratings surprised me a little bit. Like
yeah,
Eric Singleton not being one of the fastest players on the team, even though he's also a really good track and field star, is kind of baffling. And look, I think I said this last week. Like, I'm not going to go crazy with the bashing of the ratings. Like, I think as we move forward with other games, I do think that like this will get better. Like, they'll kind of see like what they need to improve on. I do think there were some areas, so I'm not going to just like, call for anybody's job or anything, but like I do think it was a bit of an oversight not having him as one of the fastest players there. I also think Zeek Biggers should have been one of the higher rated players, especially on defense, and he wasn't. So those were a couple of just like issues I have with it. Like not seriously. Like I'm able to sleep good at night knowing it because it's just a game. But at the end of the day, like I do kind of wish they'd fix that. But like any thoughts on like the roster and the ratings and that kind of thing?
Yeah, there was one thing I was surprised by, and I mean, I was surprised in a good way, was Romelio Height getting an 85 overall, which is tied for the highest overall in the team. We went into this and we mentioned, like who our top players are going to be on offense, who our top players are going to be on defense. I don't know if we even.
I do think we mentioned him, and I think it was, and it wasn't like in a disrespectful way, but it was like, okay, they're going to say he transferred from USC and Auburn, and he's automatically just going to be higher rated. And he's a good player, but it's like people, I think, just see that, and then they are just automatically rating them high with transfers. I mean, I saw that like kind of everywhere around the game. There's some transfers on other teams who I don't know that are going to play all that much, but they come from higher schools, and they got rated pretty high. So I do think a lot of it was just looking at where they transferred from. But, like, Romelo's going to be a really good player on this defense. Like, let's not get that confused. Like, he's going to be counted on to do a lot. But, yeah, continue.
But, yeah, I saw it, and I said fair enough. Because he's probably going to be one of the best edge rushers on the team, if not the best, by a big margin. And, I was definitely not mad that they gave him, a higher rating than I thought.
Also,
and he's a beast in the game too.
Yeah, that's the thing I was going to say. He's really good in the game. Another thing, I think you told me you haven't got a chance to play Ultimate Team yet. I went in there and I haven't got to actually play yet, and I know that's not everybody's favorite game mode for you guys out there that play the game. But I went in there, and they had like some kind of like ACC. You could choose like a conference welcome pack or something, and I chose ACC, of course, and it gives you like 80 something overall player from every team. And then Jamal Haynes was the Georgia Tech one. So I did choose Jamal Haynes as my running back because right now I've got like my offense is pretty good. My defense is like almost all like 70 or below right now. But I've got like Joe Burrow, Jamal Haynes, Travis Hunter. I want to say another good receiver, so something like that. And so, like, yeah, I'm just kind of starting that out. But the good thing is there's just so many modes to play on in this game, whether it's Georgia Tech or anybody else. If you want to do Dynasty, do Dynasty. You want to do Road to Glory? I've had Dynasty is the only thing I've actually done so far. And then like the Play Now when I was just kind of getting used to it. So I still haven't dug into like Road to Glory or I know Team Builder that had come out yesterday.
Yep, last night.
So I'm excited to get into that as well. But yeah, just super glad we got the game this week. It's a lot of fun. It's gonna any what little spare time I have, I'll definitely be trying to get better at it. But any other thoughts on this or anything else we want to talk about as far as the game or Georgia Tech goes?
Yeah, the one thing that I kind of thought was weird is I think they still underrated the defense by a large margin this game. But when you load into a game and it shows the overalls for each team, Georgia Tech is an 80 overall, which I'm like, okay, that's fine. But it says 80 overall defense and 74 overall, or 80 overall offense, 74 overall defense, which doesn't even make sense because our special teams would have to be like an 86, which I don't think that's true.
Yeah, that is some of the ratings on the team, and then I know a lot of people have pointed out the band uniforms and some technical things, and hopefully like that gets fixed going forward. Yeah. But like I said last week, like I'm not going to complain too much right now because I do want to see going forward. Hey, like can y'all tweak this a little bit, or hopefully this doesn't become just a hey, be happy you got a college football game and you're going to be happy with what we put out. So, well, that's something I'm not going to be too concerned about right now, but hopefully they fix in the future. Anything else on the game?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Well, let's talk media days. That's kind of been we haven't gotten to talk about a lot because ACC is going last. ACC and Big Ten go last next week. We had Big 12 last week. We had SEC this week, and now we get ACC starting Monday. I will be in Charlotte. That's the only day I'm going to be there. Like Georgia Tech, they're there the first day. Georgia Tech, Florida State. The other team is slipping my mind right now. And then it goes through Thursday. But, obviously I think – and I don't know this for a fact, but I'm assuming Georgia Tech and Florida State are both going first because of the week 0 game, which is just 5 weeks from tomorrow. 5 weeks. We're closing in on just about a month out from the game. So I'm just super excited about that. But yeah, I'm kind of like we heard earlier this week, Brent Key is obviously going to be there. Haynes King is going to be there. Jamal Haynes is going to be there. And Zeek Biggers is going to be there. Just kind of what are you looking to hear from Brent Key? At this time last year, it's kind of crazy. Whenever I've been writing like the team previews over on Georgia Tech on SI, go check them out. And it was like, man, a year, like with quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and offensive line, it's like, man, a year ago, we didn't know who the starting quarterback was going to be. I had zero clue Jamal Haynes was going to be as good as he was last year. One of the things I questioned consistently last year was, does this team have a number one receiver? Like, or any of the receivers? Like, what does this look like? Pretty deep group of receivers. Offensive line goes from one of the worst in the country to one of the best. It's just such a different feel. And now you still have like questions on defense, but I just think it's kind of crazy that like we know they have a good quarterback. We know they have a top rushing attack. We know they have a deep receiver room. So I just wanted to point that out. But kind of what are you looking to hear from Brent Key on Monday?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like kind of what you said. It kind of came out of nowhere where Brent Key has just built so fast in this offense. And, obviously we're going to want to hear about, progress that has been made. But I kind of more want to hear how Brent Key kind of has an outlook on the season, what he thinks he can do, how he thinks he can play. And maybe if we get this, some thoughts on the defense, because, that is one thing that is ever changing. Tyler Santucci just got hired as defensive coordinator. So that's one thing I've been watching, all throughout spring to now is how's the defense going to look?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was wanting to say as well. Like, because, we talked to him in the spring, but they've made, several additions, since then. Like Romello Height is one of those that came after the spring game. We didn't really get a chance to talk to him about Jordan Vandenberg, the Penn State defensive tackle transfer, Thomas Gore, the defensive tackle transfer from Miami. Like, they've added pieces to this defensive line since the spring, which I think Vandenberg I think he was like in the middle of the spring, if I'm remembering correctly. I think because he hadn't signed, I don't know if Key could talk about him. And that's just, I don't know that for certain, but I know he committed earlier than those guys. But anyway, then you had guys like Zachary Tobe from Illinois. You had Jaden Davis from Cincinnati. Like, all those guys coming after the spring, during the spring portal window. So I think hearing him talk about those guys is going to be interesting to me. Also, like, I know I think it was me that asked him last year just kind of about the schedule, because it's just, I think Tech fans are just used to the schedule just being like obnoxiously hard. I do want to hear, if he has to say anything about just like, okay, you're starting with Florida State and you also have to play, you go to Syracuse a couple weeks later, you have Louisville, you have Duke, you have North Carolina, you play Notre Dame, neutral site, you go to Virginia Tech, you play Miami, NC State, and then you finish up with a Black Friday matchup at Georgia. I am also kind of curious to hear maybe if he talked, because I know one of the key talking points for him last year was like, hey, we want to make this a rivalry again. Like, he's been pretty upfront about that, like, pretty consistently as well. So I wonder if he maybe has more thoughts on that as well. But I do kind of wonder if he has any thoughts on the game being on Black Friday, because I think that did disappoint some fans. I'm not going to claim to speak for all fans, of course, but like, I do think that disappointed some people. So I do wonder if maybe he has an opinion on that. But anything as far as the players go, like, obviously Haynes King, Jamal Haynes, Zeek Biggers, like anything like maybe you want to hear out of them.
Well, kind of what we talked about with the defense earlier and how there have been so many additions to the defensive line and how things may look different. I kind of want to hear from Zeek Biggers talking about, the new additions in the defensive line. And, there's not much Haynes King could tell me that could ruin the amount of trust that we already have. Like, there hasn't been a quarterback like Haynes King at Georgia Tech where he's kind of been mutually respected by all fans and everybody everywhere in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I kind of would be interested to hear from Haynes is, like, obviously I think you might get questions about, hey, what are you going to do to trim the turnovers down? Because I think that's probably the only question, like, serious question you have about him is like, hey, man, we got to improve the turnovers, or, this team's going to be kind of just stuck where it was last year. And the offense was good last year, but I do think we both agree that there's another level it could hit if you trim down on the turnovers. Yeah. I know I think him and Buster Faulkner both this spring talked about getting more explosive in the passing attack. Not that they weren't last year, but I think not as much as they wanted to. One thing I'm curious about is, going into last year, there was like, we didn't know who the quarterback was. We didn't know what the receiver room was really going to look like. And then now it's like, okay, how do you improve on that chemistry? Like, how do you further that, like with Eric Singleton or Malik Rutherford or Christian Leary, maybe some of the, freshmen, maybe they're ready to contribute. I don't know, but I'm kind of curious to see maybe if he has anything to say about that. And then for Jamal, it's just kind of like what's the encore look like, And I think somebody asked him that this spring, if I'm remembering correctly, and I think he was pretty humble about it, just improve and that kind of deal. But and then for Zeke, like, it's kind of like, well, what are some of your new teammates? What does that look like? What is it like playing in this new defense? You got to go through it in the spring. How much better do you think you guys are going to be? And I'm sure you'll get your standard answers. We're going to be as good as we can be, that kind of thing. But it'll be the first time we've heard from anybody since the spring, I think, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, I think so. I wonder. I just thought about this now. I wonder how many questions players are going to get about the new game. Probably,
like that's probably because during I was just kind of following SEC Media Days kind of lightheartedly this year. Just, I have so much, work going on and everything. So I was like, I checked in a little bit. I didn't see a ton. Like I saw some questions, but it wasn't like all we're going to talk about is a video game. Like I do think a lot of the questions were football based. So, but I'm sure like it's just going to be natural. Like people are going to get questions about it and probably what they think about it and if they play it. And yeah, but ACC Media Days coming Monday. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm assuming you can watch it on ACC Network. I'm assuming. I don't think it'll be on like ESPN, but I'm assuming you can watch it on ACC Network. Also, I don't think they gave like a certain time that Brent Key and everybody's going to speak, because I know it kind of opens up at 10, and then I know Mike Norvell is also talking, and the players from Florida State, and ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips is going to speak as well. So we're going to get a lot of that. Interesting. I mean, I'm kind of like just on that point. I know it's not specifically Georgia Tech related, and he'll probably just give it's an ongoing thing. I'm not going to answer it, but I do kind of wonder how many questions and if any answers Jim Phillips is going to give on the Florida State Clemson court cases going on right now. Like I said, I'm assuming it'll probably be, hey, it's an ongoing case. I'm not going to answer anything about that right now, but you never know.
Yeah, I wonder how many questions he'll get about expansion and teams leaving in general, because that could also be a big topic.
Well, and at this time last year, I don't even think it was official that SMU, Cal, and Stanford were going to be, because I didn't think that became official like maybe till August.
Yeah, I think it was July this year.
Yeah, it was. I'd have to go back and see, but it was kind of a crazy time just right in there, like when conference expansion kind of exploded. Obviously, like I don't want to dwell too deep into that. I think fans kind of get tired of it, and I do too. Like it's just kind of speculation right now until we see what these court cases end up like. Like we'll see what the future of the ACC holds. But yeah, he's definitely gonna get probably a ton of questions about that on Monday. Anything else about Media Days or anything else you want to mention?
Not that I can think of.
Well, like I said, 5 weeks, man. 5 weeks from tomorrow, we will have College Game Day on our TVs live from Dublin, Ireland, and we will be just a few hours from kickoff. We're super excited about that. So if you're watching on YouTube, you know the drill. Like the video, subscribe to us on the channel. Helps us grow. Helps us, get more Georgia Tech content out there, and spreading the word and everything. If you're listening on a podcast form, we'd love it. If you guys would leave us whatever review you think we deserve. Let us know in the comments what we can do better. We always appreciate that. We always try to improve the show for you guys and make it geared more towards Georgia Tech fans and what you guys want to see. So that'll do it for us today. That's RJ Schafer. I'm Jackson Caudell, and thank you for listening.